Before we dive into today's intense story, a quick reminder. Over 90% of our viewers watch our videos but aren't subscribed. If you enjoy content like this, take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And if you find this story gripping, don't forget to like the video. It really helps us out.
My name is Claire. I'm 35 years old, a mother of two, and I've been married to Antoine for 12 years. We built what most people would call an ordinary, comfortable life, one filled with school runs, late-night movies, birthday parties, and Sunday mornings filled with the smell of pancakes and coffee. I wasn't rich, and I wasn't chasing fame. I just wanted peace, love, and loyalty. For a long time, I thought I had it. Antoine was charming in the way quiet men sometimes are. He didn't talk too much, but when he did, people listened. He worked as a financial advisor, which meant long hours and spreadsheets I never understood, and I taught second grade at the local school. We met at university, fell in love slowly and then all at once, and got married before either of us turned 25. We were young, naive maybe, but deeply in love, or at least I thought we were. It began with little things, missed calls, unread texts, odd excuses for coming home late, traffic, meetings, broken elevators, things any working man could face. I didn't question them at first. I was too busy juggling my own responsibilities, grading papers, managing the kids' schedules, preparing meals, and trying to remember what a full night's sleep felt like. But over time, the excuses didn't make sense. His meetings became more frequent, yet he was always exhausted, emotionally distant, and oddly short-tempered. He began to forget things. Our anniversary, Matilda's dance recital, Louis's science fair. At first, I reminded him gently, giving him the benefit of the doubt. But when the forgetfulness turned to apathy, I felt something in my chest shift. The first real sign came one Thursday evening. He came home late, again, this time with a faint scent on his shirt. It wasn't perfume exactly, more like lavender and vanilla, not mine. I asked him about it. He laughed. Said a coworker had spilled something on him during lunch. He looked me in the eye when he said it, and maybe that's why I believed him. But I started watching, not stalking or snooping, just observing. He started locking his phone. He never used to, and he began taking more business trips, though when I looked at our bank statements, there were no corresponding hotel bookings, no flight expenses, nothing. He was careful, clever even, but I was his wife. I knew his rhythms better than he did, and they were changing. So I made a decision. I didn't confront him. Not right away. Instead, I became quieter. I started paying attention to the parts of my life I'd been neglecting. My own passions, my appearance, my mental health. I started journaling. I even signed up for a pottery class. It might sound unrelated, but something about molding clay with my hands grounded me in ways I hadn't felt in years. While I was rediscovering myself, I was also collecting pieces of a puzzle. I found receipts in his jacket pocket from a restaurant we'd never been to, 2 meals, not one. I found a necklace under the passenger seat of his car. It wasn't mine. When I asked, he told me it belonged to a client's daughter he had dropped off after an appointment. I nodded, but inside, I knew. The final blow came from someone I least expected, his cousin, Julie. Julie and I had always been close, almost like sisters. One day, she invited me for coffee, and her eyes were already filled with guilt before I even sat down. I didn't press her, but she said it anyway. Claire, I've seen him twice, with the same woman, at the cafe near the bank, holding hands, laughing like a man in love. I didn't cry, not in front of her. I thanked her for telling me. Said I needed to pick up the kids, and drove home in silence. That night, I watched him sleep beside me, his back turned, breathing steady. I felt a numbness settle in, but beneath it, something darker was stirring. Not sadness, not heartbreak. It was rage, but it was cold and calculated, not explosive. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to throw things or beg him to choose me. I wanted to do something far more powerful. I wanted him to feel what it's like to lose everything while thinking he still had control. The next morning, I started planning. I wasn't going to ruin him with fire. I'd do it with silence, with strategy, with patience. I didn't leave. I didn't yell. I played my part. I kissed his cheek in the morning, packed his lunch, and tucked the kids into bed like everything was normal. And while he thought I was clueless, I was 2 steps ahead. I opened a separate bank account under my name. I met with a lawyer. I began documenting everything, every late return, every receipt, every lie. I even installed a small voice recorder under the passenger seat of his car, not to expose him to the world, just to hear the truth from his own mouth. And I got it. A 2-minute clip where he called her the only real thing in his life. That was all I needed. But still, I waited. I wanted him to feel safe. So I kept smiling. I even suggested we take a family vacation in a few months. He agreed, probably because he thought I was stupid, or worse, indifferent. Meanwhile, I was building a case so solid it would crush him like a falling tree. The hardest part was pretending. Sometimes I'd hear him in the shower, singing, and I'd feel sick. Sometimes he'd hug the kids, and I'd wonder how someone could be so affectionate with them while lying to their mother. Sometimes he'd kiss me, and I'd have to remind myself not to flinch, but I did it. Every day I reminded myself, the revenge wouldn't come from screaming or chaos. It would come from calm, relentless execution, and the opportunity came faster than I expected. One evening, as I tucked Matilda into bed, she asked, "Mom, why does Dad always smile at that lady at his office more than he smiles at you?" I blinked. "What lady, sweetheart?" "The one with the red hair. I saw her when we went to his office last month. He looked happy, like he doesn't at home." Out of the mouths of babes, they say. And I knew I couldn't wait much longer. But I wasn't ready to strike yet. I needed one more confirmation. Not for me, I already knew, for the court. So I hired someone, a discreet investigator. Within a week, he handed me photos. Clear, undeniable proof of Antoine and his red-haired lover kissing in his car, in front of her apartment. That night, I looked at the photos for a long time. Then I placed them in a sealed envelope and hid it in my drawer. And I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because the trap was ready. All that remained was to spring it. But not yet. Not until he truly believed I had no idea. Not until he offered me one final lie, and I'd act like I believed him as always. But that would be his last mistake, and I would be there, watching him fall without lifting a finger. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of careful smiles, of pretending not to notice how often Antoine stared at his phone with a little smirk on his lips. I knew that smirk wasn't for me. It hadn't been for a long time. But he still believed I was clueless. He had no idea that every business dinner he scheduled, every night he came home with a faint trace of perfume on his collar, I was collecting more than evidence. I was collecting silence. My own silence. I was learning how to stay calm while my entire life slowly shattered behind a mask of normalcy. Then, on a Friday evening, he made the mistake I'd been waiting for. He walked into the kitchen, loosened his tie, and said, "I have to fly to Lyon on Monday. Just a short trip. Should be back Wednesday night." My heart didn't skip a beat. I didn't blink. I simply nodded. "Anything important?" "Just a client. Boring stuff." And there it was, his final lie. I smiled, walked over, and kissed his cheek. "Need me to pack anything for you?" He grinned. "You're the best." He had no idea that I'd already checked his calendar. There was no client in Lyon. His assistant had confirmed he had taken personal leave for 3 days. I didn't confront him. I didn't even let my voice shake. I just nodded again and said, "I'll make your favorite dinner when you come back." That weekend, I stayed quiet, but my mind was at war. Every time I saw him playing with the kids, I felt rage and sadness swirl like storm clouds in my chest. He had no idea that he wasn't just cheating on me. He was cheating on our family, on the people who loved him unconditionally. But I had a plan. Monday morning, he left at 6:45 a.m. sharp, suitcase in hand, wearing the blue shirt I had ironed the night before. I watched him from the window as he got in the car and drove away, waving once before turning the corner. And then I picked up the phone. The private investigator I had hired was already one step ahead. He was following Antoine from the airport, not to Lyon, but to a quiet hotel 2 hours away. A hotel with rose bushes at the entrance and a reputation for hosting private getaways. By noon, I had all the confirmation I needed. Photographs of Antoine holding hands with the red-haired woman, sharing a bottle of wine on the terrace. That evening, a picture of them entering the same hotel room. And in the morning, them walking out together, laughing. It should have broken me, but it didn't. It only strengthened my resolve. I spent the next 2 days preparing. First, I scanned every document in the house. Bank statements, mortgage papers, retirement funds, insurance, the kids' school forms. I wanted a copy of everything, and I wanted it stored securely. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to leave with clarity, dignity, and complete control. Then, I printed every photo the investigator had sent. I placed them in an envelope and added a copy of the audio recording from his car, the one where he said his mistress was the only person who truly understands me. I wrote a single note to go with it. Now I understand everything. I didn't sign it. On Wednesday night, Antoine came back, as promised. He kissed me like nothing happened, sat at the dinner table, asked the kids about school, complimented the lasagna I had made. It was surreal watching him. He didn't know that envelope was already in his briefcase, that before dinner, while he was in the shower, I had slipped it in. That night, I lay next to him in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. He had no idea that everything was already unraveling. By the end of the week, the first thread was pulled. He called me from work on Friday, voice shaken. "Claire, can we talk?" "Of course." "What's wrong?" He hesitated. I found something in my bag, pictures. A note. I stayed silent for just a moment longer than necessary. "Oh? Claire, I can explain." I forced my breath to tremble. "Explain what?" Silence. I let it sit there like a sharp knife between us. When he came home that evening, he tried to touch me, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said. For the first time in years, he looked truly afraid. That weekend, I didn't speak much. He kept trying to say he was sorry, that he'd lost his way, that it was just a mistake. He cried once, big, wet tears that once would have made me rush to hold him, but not this time. This time, I let him weep. I had no intention of saving him, because I wasn't going to divorce him just yet. That would have been too easy. Instead, I moved into the guest room. I told the kids that Daddy had been working too much and Mommy needed quiet for a little while. They didn't understand, but they nodded, and I hugged them a little tighter every night. In the weeks that followed, I became colder, but not cruel. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't tell anyone. Not my family, not my friends. That was the real punishment. He wanted chaos. He expected a storm. But I gave him silence. Silence so thick it made him question everything. Then I started taking things from him, not physically, but emotionally. I stopped asking about his day. I stopped laughing at his jokes. I stopped waiting up for him at night, and he noticed. One night he said, "Claire, I feel like you're not here anymore." I looked at him and replied, "I'm not." By the 3rd month, he was unraveling. He started staying home more, cooking dinner, trying to prove something, but it was too late. The damage had been done. He had broken something in me that could never be repaired, and he knew it. Then came the next part of my plan. I reached out to his mistress, not with anger, but with a cold, precise tone. I sent her an email from an anonymous account with a simple message. "He's all yours now, but know this. He cheats on the mother of his children without blinking. What makes you think he won't do it to you?" I attached a photo, Antoine holding our daughter at the park, the same day he met with her that evening. She replied only once. "I didn't know." "I'm sorry." And then she disappeared. Antoine started texting her more. I knew because I checked his phone while he was in the shower. No responses, just silence. She had blocked him. He became depressed, snapped at the kids, slept less, drank more. I documented everything. And finally, I was ready. I filed for divorce on a Thursday morning, quietly. No drama. The documents were delivered to his office, not the house. I wanted him to be alone when he read them, to feel what isolation truly meant. That evening, he came home, eyes red. He held the papers like they were fire. "You're really doing this?" I looked at him, calm and certain. "You did this. I'm just finishing what you started." He collapsed into a chair, completely defeated. He begged. He said we could fix it. He even suggested counseling, but I didn't waver. "I gave you everything," I said, my voice finally cracking. "And you gave it to someone else." I had stayed quiet long enough, and now it was my turn to leave. The house was silent the day I left. It wasn't sudden. I'd planned everything down to the hour. The movers came early in the morning, careful and quiet. I had already rented a small house in the next town, close enough to the kids' school, but far enough that I wouldn't run into Antoine in the grocery store. I didn't take everything, just what was mine and what the kids needed. I left behind the rest, like old memories I no longer wanted to carry. Antoine wasn't home when we left. That was intentional. I had asked him to stay at his parents' house for the weekend so the kids wouldn't see us fighting, and he had agreed, maybe thinking that giving me space would help me change my mind. But my mind was made up. When the last box was loaded, I walked through every room one last time. The kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals, the hallway where we'd measured the kids' height on the wall, the bedroom that had once felt like a sanctuary and now felt like a crime scene. And then I left. No drama, no goodbye note, just gone. For the first time in years, I felt free, not happy. Freedom doesn't always come with joy, but light, as if I'd shed a version of myself that had been carrying too much for too long. The kids took it better than I expected. They were confused, yes. Hurt, absolutely. But I told them the truth in the gentlest way I could. Mom and Dad still love you more than anything in the world, but we're not going to live in the same house anymore. That's not your fault, that's ours. I didn't mention the affair. I didn't need to. Someday, maybe when they're older, they'll understand, or maybe they won't. But what mattered was that they felt safe, loved, and secure. I set up their new rooms with care. Same posters, same bed sheets, even the same stuffed animals. I wanted the transition to be soft, like snow covering everything ugly underneath. Antoine called the moment he saw the empty house, 20 times in an hour. I didn't answer. Then came the messages. "You've made your point. Let's talk, please. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything." But it was too late. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want promises. I wanted peace. And now I had it. I had also hired a very sharp attorney. She wasn't aggressive, but she was thorough. With the evidence I had gathered, there was no room for Antoine to lie or manipulate. The photos, the audio, the timeline, everything was presented neatly in court. He tried to act sorry in front of the judge. He tried to suggest joint custody was best for the kids. But my lawyer made it clear that while I wasn't asking for full custody, I had every reason to. In the end, we settled on primary custody for me and alternate weekends for him. He would pay child support and contribute to school expenses. The house would be sold. The proceeds would be split. He got no sympathy. Not from the judge, not from me, and eventually not even from his own family. You see, I didn't tell anyone the truth at first. But once the divorce was filed, once the documents became public, the story started to spread on its own. People noticed how sudden it was. Friends started asking questions. His cousin Julie quietly told others what she had seen. The red-haired mistress? She ghosted him completely, blocked, gone. His life began to unravel in slow motion. He lost clients. Some didn't want to work with a man known for deceit. His social circle shrank. Invitations stopped coming. Even his own sister told him she was disappointed. He came to see the kids a few times at first, tried to act like the fun dad. But children are smart. They noticed the way he looked tired, the way he kept checking his phone, the way he never laughed the way he used to. Eventually, they stopped asking when he would come, and he stopped showing up. I didn't encourage them to hate him. I never said a cruel word in front of them, but I also never defended him. I let him dig his own grave with silence. That was my revenge, not to scream, not to fight, but to walk away completely and let the absence speak louder than anything I could ever say. Months passed. I started rebuilding. I finished my pottery class and even sold a few pieces at a local market. I started running again, something I hadn't done since my 20s. I read more, slept better, laughed louder, and for the first time in over a decade, I looked in the mirror and saw myself, not a wife, not a mother, not a woman holding a crumbling family together, but me. One afternoon, almost a year after I left, I ran into Antoine by accident. He looked thinner, hollow, like a man who had finally realized he had destroyed something that couldn't be repaired. He asked if we could talk. Out of curiosity, I agreed. We sat at a small cafe. He ordered coffee. I didn't. He looked at me with eyes full of regret. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he said. "Not because I want anything, I ruined everything, and I think about it every day." I nodded. "I know. I miss the kids. They miss the version of you that loved them properly. That version is gone." He looked down. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "I already have," I said, surprising myself. "Really?" "Yes, because forgiveness isn't about you. It's about me. I needed to let go of the anger to move forward." He didn't respond. We sat in silence for a moment before I stood up. "I hope you find peace, Antoine." Then I walked away, and I didn't look back. Today, I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm not even sad. I'm whole. And that's the greatest revenge of all, not destroying him, but choosing myself and building a life he's no longer allowed to be part of.